We just had to have a bit of a difficult conversation with my son because kids at school were telling him the Easter Bunny's not real. And I don't know that they were actually telling him the Easter Bunny's not real, because here they don't believe in the Easter Bunny. It's les cloches de Pâques, which are the bells of Easter, like church bells, multiple bells. And I guess kids think these bells are hiding chocolate in the garden, little chocolate eggs and different candies in the garden. I'm thankful that this happened after Easter and he had like one last Easter. He kind of hinted at Santa also not being real, and we didn't really address that. We just asked, what do you think about it? So we did have to have a little bit of a difficult talk with him about how the Easter Bunny is not real, but it's magical, and we are not going to, share that information with your sister, and you can help us hide Easter eggs next year, because in our house it's the Easter Bunny still, because he spent the earlier portion of his toddler life in the US, and so now that he's gotten older, it's what he's used to. But the difference between the bells of Easter and the Easter Bunny has never really been a problem for either of my kids. Santa is the same, it's just Père Noel, but it's the same. There are obviously some different like Christmas traditions between France and the US, but as far as like Santa coming to visit on Christmas Eve, that is the same. And then the last imaginary thing that he obviously now knows is not real is the tooth fairy. But here, instead of the tooth fairy, we have la petite souris, the little mouse. And sometimes you'll see like a little mouse with a wand and like a crown or a tutu or something, which is like supposed to symbolize what they consider the tooth fairy. So that's the last imaginary. Those are the only three that I can think of that kids in the US believe that the French also teach their kids about. But just a few cultural differences, but it's the same concept. La petite souris comes and leaves a coin in exchange for your tooth or some euro. I don't know how parents do it here. I think we've always done $2 when I was a kid, and so that's what we stuck to in the US. And here we do a €2 coin. I don't know, maybe other parents are doing more. Inflation is crazy, so I don't know what you're giving your kids for from the tooth fairy or la petite souris. That's how we've done it here. We've never made a huge deal about any of these things. Like, we never did the whole like Santa's watching you and you have to be good, or the Easter Bunny's not going to bring you any candy. Like, we just don't really talk that stuff up a whole lot. Obviously kids get excited about it, but yeah, I think it's interesting because I think in France kids learn that these things aren't real earlier. Like, my son is barely 7 years old, and that's an okay age to learn that these things aren't real. But I think a lot of kids in the US are maybe 8 or 9 when they find out. Obviously, this is different depending on different families and like how they talk about this, and even different generations maybe. I remember being, I think, 9 years old, and there were plenty of kids in my grade that didn't know that Santa wasn't real. Definitely depends on the household and the maturity of the child. I just remember my father-in-law at Christmas this year feeling like my son should know, like we should tell him, and we were like, no, like let him have one more Christmas before his friends tell him. But I think his fear was that kids at school would pick on him about it, and he's right, like they might have, but I'm glad he had one more Christmas. It's a hard thing to decide as parents, like when you tell your kids, or I know people who just tell their kids right away, like, this isn't real, but it's fun, like don't go tell your friends at school. Like, so it's a hard thing to handle as parents. What age did you find out that Santa and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny were not real? And how did you talk to your kids about it if you do have kids?